Alright everyone, I know it's been quite a while since I've done a LEGO review, but I've finally managed to get to it. And in this review we're going to be looking at the 3 LEGO games that I own. Very interesting concept by LEGO, and one that Hasbro in fact has actually copied themselves, with their U-Build range. But we're going to see that although it's a great idea and a great concept to combine the 2 greatest things, board games and LEGO, sometimes some things just aren't designed to be together. We can clearly see how similar the box designs are for all of these sets. We've got the title along this sort of white outline here. We've got the LEGO dice and the LEGO symbol in this corner, as well as your typical board game ratings in this corner, telling you how long each go for. All of these games have a very similar box design. If we flip them over, they all have this same kind of writing on them. We can see that obviously Minotaur's got a picture of the game, a couple of special features about the game, including what's on the dice. Flip over Harry Potter, we can see that the dice is mentioned here, and also here. And interestingly enough, 4 languages on the box: German, English, French, and Italian. Which is very interesting, seeing that these products were bought in Australia. So now let's have a look what's actually inside them, and how good the gameplay is. Alrighty, so first we're going to go into this Minotaur game. And we can see it's a very simple board, built of many pieces, joined together. Now we have a look, we've got an instruction booklet, which in LEGO fashion is very easy to build. However, strangely enough, it often doesn't actually show you which pieces you need in the corner, like most LEGO sets do. They have a number that tells you how many of each thing you're going to need. You don't actually see this, returning to one of the old style kind of instructions. Now the second booklet we have is the instruction booklet, which once again is in all 4 languages. Okay, we've got this LEGO die here. Interestingly enough, all the ones have a LEGO die come with this multi-purpose tool, which makes it a lot easier to get them off this dice, which is in fact rubber edges with a hard center. Okay, a quick overview of how this game works. You choose your team, like so, and when you roll the die, if you get a number, you can move any member of your team that number of studs. If you get the black square, it means that you can move this guy here, the Minotaur, 8 spaces, or 8 studs. And if you roll a grey piece, you can move a wall, like this. Either one of the 2 on the side that each team has, or one that's already on the field. And of course, if you get hit by the Minotaur, your character gets bumped back to the start. And the aim of the game is to get all 3 of the characters to the center. Okay, well now we're going to have a quick look at the faults of this game in particular, because I think it makes more sense to do game by game instead of doing all the good things and all the bad things. Now, this game, it's good, I must say, but it's still very simple, especially for, you know, the box which says, you know, 7+ players. It's really not very difficult. I mean, luckily enough, construction is aided by this mat here, this cardboard mat, which tells you where all the pieces go. However, I still think that it gets very stock and sort of boring after a couple of plays, especially because the Minotaur simply can't catch people fast enough, and you simply don't roll walls long enough to actively be able to stop people from getting into the spot. I mean, if you think about it, you've got a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a wall, and if someone's here, they can easily get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and win. So that's one thing I don't like about this game, is that, as with the other LEGO games, it's really short sort of lived, and despite the fact LEGO saying, oh yeah, your game, your rules, it does sort of, you know, seem like LEGO sort of being like, oh yeah, have a board, make the game up yourself. And so I don't like that attitude of the game, but like the concept of the game is really good. And I think that for younger children especially, it's really plus. But for older people, this game's a little bit on the simple side. Okay, now onto Harry Potter. At first glance you can tell this has a lot more building going on, and I think LEGO's put a lot more effort into this game than they have in some of their other games. So if we have a look at the instruction booklet, it's a lot thicker, and though once again, you know, in LEGO style, we've seen the return of these little boxes telling us what we need, which is really helpful because as you can see the building does get quite interesting. And then once again we've got the instruction booklet with the 4 different languages. Now I think one thing interesting about this game is that it comes with these minifigures. Little micro figures, sorry. By the way, if you didn't already know, these are called micro figures. They take up 1 stud, and they still fit normal hair and normal accessories on their heads, but they don't have arms, you can't move them, can't take them apart, and they've got one sort of mega foot, which sort of divides into 2 other feet. So we've got Dumbledore, and we've got a little, tiny little Hermione, Ron, and a little Malfoy. But then actually, you don't actually end up playing with these characters. You play with this, you know, stock green character, stock red character, stock yellow character, and stock blue character, which I thought was really interesting. Okay, now onto the dice. Here we can see the LEGO dice. And the way this works is such. Each turn, your character gets to move 1. And as you can see, the character moves 1 is just simply like 1, 2. So you move 1 each time. Rolling a 1, 2, or a 3 shows you how many of these you can shift. Now the idea of the game is that you can take out these moving staircases, not classrooms, moving staircases, and if you roll a 3, you can go 1, 2, 3. Then you put this back in exactly the way you found it, and then you move. And so this allows you to move around, and I think there's a lot more thought involved with this one, because the way you move this around can affect all the other players. This piece here means that you can switch 2 of these pieces, one of these, say with one of these directional pieces. And this Marauder's map piece means that you can get into a room without there being a door. So if I'm here, or rather if I'm here, I can still get into both there or there if I choose, even if there's not a door there. Now, this also has some cool extras. The Minotaur had a different kind of die which allowed you to change the game, but I think this one's actually worth mentioning because firstly, you've got 2. You've got the Albus Dumbledore one, which is a red piece you replace one of these with, and what it allows you to do is to move Albus next to you, and he gives you special abilities in the game. And the second is this brown piece, which means you can move the cat, Filch's cat, and block one of the paths. And so, with all of this in mind, you can see that the aim of the game is to go into each classroom, collect your coloured object, so an animal, a book, a potion, and the sphere divination ball, and then race back to home. Well, first of all, physically, this is a bit more fragile. I mean, it took me a good 5 minutes to put this back together after being in the box, simply because all the pieces snap off, just so I could do this review. Like that. Second of all is, once again, despite, you think, oh, this game must be really complex. Despite all this, it's still reasonably simple. Which is a little bit frustrating, because you can see they put a lot of effort into it. It's still quite easy to win. What else is also wrong with this? As I said, it's not only simple, but I think that the fact that these characters play no part at all, I think that was a little bit of a fail on LEGO's part, because you've got this advertising on the front saying, oh look, with bonus 5 microfigures, you can actually use them in the game. So yeah, apart from the short sort of length of time it takes to complete this game, I actually think this is possibly, I think, the best and most enjoyable of the 3 LEGO games I've got. And although it's slightly more expensive for what it is because of the fact it's Harry Potter, I think they've done a really good job with this game. And for the age bracket they're after, I think this is quite appropriate. Alrighty, now we move on to Creationary. which is another game in itself. Now, as you can see, this one doesn't actually have any building because, as you know, it's much like Pictionary. Well, sort of. The gameplay, as we can see in this book, which once again has 4 languages, is quite simple. The idea is that you pick up the die and you roll it, and this tells you what kind of category. You can see transport, buildings, machines, nature, random, which means the person who is building can choose, and double points, which means you roll again to see who's going to be building what, but you get double points. And you see these are the cards here. I'll move these pieces. And so if we pick up an easy card, there we go, they're the 4 things that have to be drawn. Now, I think this is going to blend very well into the faults, because I mean, like, it's not easy to build a ship out of Lego, even if you had every single part, even if you bought like a specific pirate ship set, let alone when all you have is a couple of blocks. A hammer, maybe. A space base, and easy. And a leaf, I can sort of see that. And so I think that this game's been done well in this sense, but like there's not enough cards and you often get them twice. And see, you've got things like a seaweed and a toll gate, like as if there's enough pieces here to make a toll gate. And I must point out that these aren't actually the pieces it comes with. This set actually doesn't come with any black blocks. None. I went out and bought them separately. A lot of these pieces it doesn't actually come with. Pieces, big, nice green pieces like this. So you actually don't get a very large range of pieces. You get all these good little studs and all these funny joint pieces, but not actually of the right colours or the right textures that you need often when you're building a set. And now, the other problem with this is that you can have as much time as you want to build the items. There's no timer, there's no motive to continue, you don't lose points if you take a long time. No, you can go forever. If no one guesses it, well, no one guesses it. And so I don't think that's very good in itself. And the third problem with this game is you don't really see... There's no board, is there? There's not really a purpose. It's just to win as many as you can in the time limit you're playing with. Because you can't say, oh, we're going to play for half an hour. Because if one person takes 15 minutes to guess it, well, you know, that's only 2 rounds. And so you're supposed to, every time you get one right, get 1 point. However, I think a board would have made this more exciting. Once again, you would have a board out of Lego and just race to the end. Every time you win, you get to move. And there's not even a, like, you know, a certain, you have to do difficult ones. It's just, oh yeah, you get more points if you do a harder one. Oh, okay, that's great. So, you know, that's just the way it works. And even then, sometimes it says that, actually, but we play it that, you know, this is worth 3 and this is worth 1. But it says that in the original, all 3 difficulties are worth 1 point. I mean, like, what? As if... It doesn't make sense. And I also think that things like this is a Segway. My brother didn't know what it was called. He picked it up trying to build it, and then we told him we said Segway, and he had no idea what we were talking about. So I think what's happened is this being a game that's sort of designed for kids because they've made it a little bit dumbed down, a little bit simple. But then it's also designed for adults because the things you're trying to build are complicated. But then it's also for kids because adults don't really know how to use Lego, but then you don't have the right parts, but then it's also for adults because it takes patience and time. So I think the concept of Creationary was amazing. I think that the idea of trying to do a Lego Creationary is great. But I think that in reality, you can't execute it simply because you can't have an infinite amount of pieces. Because there's always that one piece that you need which you don't have every time you play it. And so I think that despite this game being a little bit of fun, it just gets more frustrating than anything else. And I've only played it a couple of times before I just sort of given up. Alrighty, a quick look at the prices. These two have the same size box as you can see. This one sold for around $35 to $45 in Australia. This one $45 to $55 because of its Harry Potter licensing. And this one was $50 just because it has a bigger box, despite probably having less Lego pieces than either of those. And now, would I recommend them? Well, to be honest, I don't recommend Creationary. Feel free to fly to Australia and you can play it at my house if you want, but don't really, unless you're really into Creationary, unless you've really got some good ideas on how to improve the game yourself, probably not that one. Harry Potter, I think if you like Harry Potter and you like the idea of having a LEGO games, I think this is probably your best bet out of the 3 I've got here. I think it's a bit of fun, and I think everyone can play it and relate to it because it's Harry Potter, so it's, you know, more exciting. The Minotaur, I think, is once again good, but in the older age bracket, not so much. If you had a couple of brothers or sisters that were little, yeah, I think this would be good. Otherwise, probably not that one either. Now, I've seen there are a lot more LEGO games than when I first bought these 3. So, you know, there's probably some better ones out there, but overall, LEGO games, yeah, a little bit half-hearted on them. And now what am I going to do on my next review? Well, you have to wait and find out. Now that's all from TrainzXtreme.